In Nigeria, you are all welcome to tonight's conversation around school safety and security, the role of the government, the community, and the SBMC. I am your host, Dr. Sanwo Olatuji David. Tonight, I have with me in the studio Mr. Louis Akuveso, a regular host on this program. Brother Louis, you are welcome.
Thank you so very much. Always a pleasure to be here.
Also on the stadium, Brother Wisdom, it's good to have you around tonight. And then we have Are Shegun Oyedijo also joining us tonight on this conversation around school safety and security. Are is a management consultant and the Southwest Regional Coordinator of ACSITE. Are Shegun Oyedijo, if you are in the studio, shout hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Good. So tonight we are going to be discussing the practical preventive safety system that schools can adopt to reduce the risk before incidents occur. We are going to be looking at the community-driven approaches and partnership that can strengthen school safety and security. We are going to be exploring the strategies for collaboration between schools, parents, community leaders, security stakeholders, government institutions, and SBMC to improve school safety. We are going to also be looking at the simple, low-cost, and scalable safety solutions that schools and communities can implement within their local context. We're going to be looking at practical school safety measures such as visitor tracking procedure, incident reporting channels, safety committees, routine safety drills, and risk mapping around school environment. We're going to be looking at approaches to addressing non-physical threats affecting learners, including bullying, peer pressure, emotional stress, abuse, and other child protection concerns. And then the appropriate support, reporting, and response mechanism for child protection and learners' well-being. We're going to be looking at sustainable approaches to creating safer and more supportive learning environment through shared responsibility and community participation. Let us start with Are. Are, I know you are a strong advocate in school safety. Do you want to open this conversation this evening around school safety and security, the role of the government, communities, and the SBMC, speaking practically to what can be done by the communities that we speak to?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I want to say a very big thank you to our host and then the management of this TV. And then thank you very much for having me. Thank you, our audience, for listening to us. To the question directly, what can be done? Yes, a lot of things can actually be done to have a safe school and a safer school.
We are not seeing your video. Are, you are not on video.
Okay.
Yes, that's
can you see me?
Yes, we can see you now. Making bold.
Okay, beautiful. So, like I was saying, a lot of things can actually be done to achieve safe school and safe environment for our children. Of course, a lot of efforts is being in place that all out of school children should actually be returned back to school, and then we have to give kudos to the present government in the effort that has been put by the president to the honorable minister and then the concerned departments on the putting adequate efforts in place to make sure that all Nigerian children actually go back to school. So, however, this effort is being watered in the sense that there are some side that concern this conversation, which is the safety of the school, and then people obviously are beginning to be scared of taking their wards to school. They are scared of kidnapping and all that. However, a lot, like I said earlier, a lot can actually be done. But to be realistic, talking as a social worker, it is good to note that we seems not to be serious in terms of this safety conversation in the country. Why do I say so? In an adequate environment, we have seen situation where people have been kidnapped in school, and then that on its own should give us a sense of responsibility that we need to guide against subsequent occurrence. I'll give a practical example of a case in the UK. In the year 2000, the case of Victoria Klembe, who was actually abused, and the abuse actually led to her death in year 2000. And then the government of the UK, that very scenario changed the entire narrative of the entire UK children safeguarding structure. And in the year 2004, the UK government passed what they call the safeguarding law. And bringing it down to our experience in Nigeria as it so stands today, several children have been kidnapped in our schools. And as it stands now, I am telling you with all sense of responsibility, that as it stands, we don't even have what is called a safeguarding policy in place in terms of preventing our children from harm in school and around. Now, if we see another thing we need to take important is we are much reactive, not being proactive. And it's very key if we actually looking for solution in terms of the safety of our children, both in school and out of school, for us to be proactive instead of being reactive. How can we be proactive? We can definitely be proactive by putting the adequate measures in place. What are the kind of measures we need to put in place? Of course, we have the CRA, which is a Child Rights Act. Of course, but despite having the Child Rights Act, we don't even have the driving policy. And then I'm privileged to say that I was part of the committee, or my organization was part of the committee that actually brought to light the first safeguarding policy 10 years this year, which is that of Lagos State. I'll be working seriously to make sure we have that on the national level. The Federal Republic of Nigeria as a government nationwide does not even have a guiding safeguarding policy. So for a country like ours, who usually have challenge in terms of implementation, now we don't even have a guiding policy to actually put in place or to actually create a structure in safeguarding our children, number one. Number two, the ones we even said to have, I think just the day before yesterday, I was in a meeting with the national coordinator of Safe School Initiative at the Federal Ministry of Finance. Now, the sweet thing about it is that that very office is working seriously on having a safe environment for the school, and we have to give kudos to them. However, all these are coming to play, all these are having serious or much attention now that this event in Ibadan in Oyo State just happened. And for us in Arkside as well, we have also done a conference which brought together all state commissioners, all ministries of education across southwestern state of the country, and then Ministry of Women and Affairs across the southwestern state of the country, and major stakeholders. Now, this is actually being reactive to the situation at hand. I just hope the pace we have set, it's one that will actually guide for future occurrence of this kind of this kind of ugly scenario, and all of us will not go back to go and sit once it's like 3 months Either they see the kids or they didn't see them. Let this effort be proactive. This is kind of measures we can put in place. Number three, it is also key for us all to come together in terms of the security of life and properties, including that of our children, quote and unquote. Now, the security, when we are talking about security, don't let us look at it from an umbrella perspective, but let us look at it from that handle of that umbrella perspective. Security does not get worsened on the larger scale like that, quote and unquote. Security remains a domestic affair. Then I will employ all of us, all community, as mentioned, the SBMC. Let everybody rise up to the defense of their immediate environment. Practical example: when all of us are going to sleep at night, it is empirical for us to watch our gate, make sure it's locked, watch our doors, make sure it's locked. But when it comes to community responsibility, we give it out for each other. If street A did not do it, street B will do it. So now, practically, do we have how many police do we have in the country? How many soldiers? How many NSCDC? I mean NSCDC, yeah, the civil defense people do we have? The fact remains that yes, thank God they are passed the what's it called, the State Police Act, but the truth remains that security remains a local exercise, and all of us need to come up to the responsibility. I was also privileged to be part of a training in Senegal sometimes ago, when we are seeing how they've been able to develop several communities through what they call community development
Thank
structure.
you.
Now, it is also
Thank
key for
you.
us in Nigeria to emulate this kind of practice. So it is called a toaster model. What does toaster model do? Toaster model brings
Hello.
together community. Hello?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are going to give an opening conversation around this discussion, and thank you for the work the civil society is doing. And you see, for us here, while the policy is still being made, our children are being stolen, and we are concerned. And this conversation started by looking at before the policy is birthed. We know, yes, the Honorable Minister of Education has been doing a lot to make education work. And then several agencies of government, local and international, are also trying to speak in Abuja. But this conversation is not for Abuja audience alone. This conversation is for the grassroots. We are trying to prepare the people in the grassroots while the policy is being cooked in the kitchen of policy. Brother Wisdom, you have heard what Are said in his opening speech. Would you want to react to that in light of the previous conversations? And then when you are speaking to my brother that is in Kwara Namoda, that does not even know there is something called safeguarding policy, but his child has been stolen. How do I react? How do I convince such a person that there is a meeting in Senegal, there is a meeting in Bank? So please, can you help me out here, Brother Wisdom?
Sorry, sir. Can you take the question again? I was logged out for a bit. Can you just take the question
My
again?
question is, you have listened to what our regional coordinator, Are Oyedijo, has spoken about the efforts of the government and the civil society, and those of them in Abuja attending conferences. And then my take is, while this is going on, our children are being taken. So in the light of that, with the reality, because the bad people are not stopping, and it will take time to hire enough policemen to go around the country. And then even the people that we are speaking with, I mean, the people that this broadcast is speaking to, don't even have NSDC, that is the civil defense, in their space. Because most of the civil defense people you see, they are in the cities. There is no civil defense corps in my village. And it is in the villages that this issue of school safety is rampant. So what do you speak to? I mean, how do you reconcile all these things to to what the government is trying to do. Over to you, Rawi.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So I think for one, we need to stop looking at security as, yes, it is the nation's duty to provide security. But the first point of call, like we've said on this show 1,001 times, is the communities have to take security as a personal affair. Just like Chief Arrest said in one of his statements, that if we're going to bed at night, we first of all need to lock our doors, right? So if we're taking security as a personal and community effort, it will go a long way to um, achieve or give good results to whatever the government is doing at the national level. Because we've also come to realize that as a nation, we have an implementation gap, that we don't have a lack of policies to back up the. We have a lot of policies, but we don't have a lot of implementations to back up the policies that we have. So I think for one, for us to be able to reconcile is communities have to take up the problem of security as their own first point of call, right? So and sometimes we say this and we could ask ourselves, what are the practical ways communities can take initiative or take a step towards securing the lives and properties of their students? For one, information gathering. So have registered logbooks where people that visit the school have to register their names before going in and coming out. Um, Take a perimeter walk around the school environment to establish where we have vulnerabilities and risk points. This will go a long way to helping both the school administration and the students know, okay, this part of the school is not safe, or this part is safe, this part needs to be worked on, the fence here is broken. We don't have any form of security assessment being done by the teachers and the people in charge of the school. Thirdly, a sort of community engagement forum between the teachers, the students, between the teachers and the parents, basically. In the past, we used to have PTA meetings to be able to communicate all of these things. So I feel like these are certain ways that practical ways we can help keep the schools just a little bit safer.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Wisdom. Now, Brother Louis, what do you have to say as an opening? Because comrade, I don't even have to start the name because Are is the chieftaincy title. So put it Are comrade or comrade Are. He has brought in another layer of policy and meetings in Abuja. And I'm just wondering, where do we go from here? Because it takes time before these policies go round and our children are being taken. Over to you, sir.
Very correct, sir. Thank you so very much. And thank you so much for having me on the call. Without being too political, I would just like to quickly state that I'm actually excited. I heard of the state policing bill, which is, making fast rounds, or most likely has already been passed. I'm not quite sure of the details, but it's a step in the right direction. What this does is, since the pressure is already on, since we are already in the era of discussing what can we do in terms of safeguarding our children, that policy still important, but the implementation side that's where everybody comes into place. Now that the law has backed the states that they can take care or take responsibility for their security, we can now have, it's now closer to the grassroots. So you ask the question, how does the person in a small local government in Kwara relate to some of the meetings that are happening, within Abuja or outside of Nigeria as regards this? If such and such people know that right now, state police is now policing is now in the hands of the government, I feel that based off of the local peculiarities in any given space, people can come together to say, based on this, our local government, I think that we can leverage what the policy says to establish XYZ. You know, I don't want to speak from a stance of ignorance because I haven't read the bill, unfortunately. But if I were to guess, I would say whatever structure has been proposed, people in the SBMC, people that we call the big men or women in these societies, in these local governments where the schools are situated, the teachers, the parents, all the stakeholders can come together to say this particular line inside the policy can enable us establish a perimeter fencing with funding from a UBEC, with funding from a World Bank, such that these perimeter fences have cameras, 360 cameras that look 70 meters, 100 meters in, and are AI enabled. And as such, whenever there's motion, the motion can be detected and same information relayed to X person as part of the SBMC or somebody that is in charge of that particular infrastructure to say, I think that we should do this and this and this. So it goes back to that system that we need to. I'm just looking at the actual practical. I'm someone that is. I prefer the technology angle. Um, Technology supporting human beings, or human beings supported by technology. So if we can look at the policy, which I will do after this meeting, and see what are those particular lines in the policy that the schools, the SBMC, and can quickly take advantage of, establish or inform the state government that this is what we plan to do in our community, and then based off of their sign off, raise the required funding that's required to get it done, especially from a technology angle. I think that that would be a straightforward way to go for somebody in Kwara who is not amongst the meetings where these policies are being developed.
Thank you, Brother Wisdom. Now I'll come back to Are. My number one challenge is that according to UBEC has 146,000, about 147,000 primary schools all over Nigeria. The Nigerian police cannot put one person in each school. Neither can Security and Defense Council put one person, because if you put two people in a school, that takes you about almost 300,000 policemen. And I'm not sure Nigeria can boast of more than 500,000 policemen. I'm not even sure we have 500,000 policemen for the whole country. I'm talking about only primary school. So what that therefore means is that the responsibility of safeguarding the school lies on the community within which each school lies. And that is where me I'm focused. And that's where I am looking at this conversation. What can the community do to be able to provide safeguarding for the school, such that whatever the policy is, we can at least provide the first line of defense? And then, because when you travel out of the country, like we always say, you hardly see policemen loitering around schools. You may say that their communities are safer, but some people made the community safe. People always speak. People provide safety for their children in the schools where they are, even in the US. However, there are policemen in proximity. So now let's look this safeguarding and policies of government. How do you think we can take it to the last mile? I mean, you have been working in that space, and I know you've been working in that space for over a decade now. So how do you think we can bring it to the last mile? Are you there? Hello, sir. What? Oh, Brother Wisdom, you want to speak to that conversation? How do you think we can take safeguarding and safety to the last mile?
Yeah, so it falls down to what you earlier said about the communities taking ownership of security, right? And it comes from a point of us engaging at an institutional level. So by institution, I mean this this doesn't just end at conferences. It doesn't just end at meetings and briefings. It waters and trickles down to the family level. So families are properly orientated and pass across security skills, survival skills to their children. It goes down to the community level, the marketplaces, the churches, the mosques. Everybody is somehow in their own capacity contributing to ensure that we have these security measures put in place? Because, like I said earlier, most of these measures and infrastructures, most of them would not cost anything. So, for example, to get a name register at the gate, it's practically not going to cost anything. To get a dedicated book for concerns from the students or parents would literally not cost anything for just people to lodge in their complaints. A monthly committee for between the teachers and the SBMCs to discuss about safety, to discuss about how to safeguard the schools and everything would literally not amount to anything. Practical emergency exit. So the students are aware that in cases of emergency, it may not even necessarily be, oh, that the people are coming to kidnap them. We don't have safety protocols put in place that if there is a fire outbreak or if we see smoke or anything like that. These are things that are missing in the school environment, which we should also take into consideration. Because if we're all safety conscious and safety aware that, oh, once there's an issue or once the bell is rang in a certain way, I know during my time in primary school, the bell goes off at different times of the day. So the bell goes off for assembly, it goes off for to change from one period to the other period. There are different signs of the bell being. So when we hear the sounds, we know that, oh, this is it. And there's that bell we're always waiting for. Once we hear it, we know that our school is over. But there's also a different bell. We had an emergency bell that once you hear the bell continuously ringing, everybody needs to assemble, no matter the time of the day, at the assembly ground or at the assembly hall. So these are easy activities and precautions that we can put in place now before the government rolls in their superstar plan or whatever it is. The communities can set some of these practices in place to ensure that the safety of the children are taken into consideration.
Thank you, sir. Brother Wisdom, you want to speak more on community-driven approaches? Because I'm going to come back to Are in a bit to come and look at how do we marry the big English in the policy. You see, because policy only becomes reasonable when it is implemented, and we are going to come there. But Wisdom, Brother Louis, how will you want to speak more about the strategies that we can use to strengthen community security or community ownership? Or I know you're a tech man. By the way, I was at the National Orientation Agency. Before we go today, I will let you know what happened. I know you are I know you are heavy on technology. So what can we do? But don't forget, so when you are talking about technology with light and with money. So over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm very interested in the National Orientation Agency outcome. We love them. We love what they stand for. We love the work that they do and the work that they still have to do. For me, I think that Wisdom has spoken quite excellently well on this. There are actually some key things that, for example, if you ask a child in a random local government, maybe not in any of some of the top states that people will consider developed in Nigeria, what a muster point is, they may not be able to tell you. I think that passing that information across all communities, whether it's through radio stations or through television or through physical outreaches, might be a way to do it. We can always set up, quick tips that people can use in emergencies or in case of emergencies, best practices. Once it's 4 o'clock, everybody needs to leave the school. If you are not at the school by 12 o'clock, cuckoo, stay home, don't come. I'm not saying these particular ones that I'm saying now, but the ones that are applicable, to where we are. On also the state level or even at the senatorial district level, at the local government level, if it's something that senators in some of the senatorial districts, might be willing and able to do, as we know they are, I would think, from an angle, we have a lot of security companies in this country, private security companies in this country. If we have agreed that, community policing and safeguarding of our children is not only for the police, then I think the security companies may also have a role to play. We're not even saying give us tools or give us equipment or anything. Just come and tell us what our best case scenario as at where we are today. You have the tech, you have the manpower, you have the high quality equipment, you in some cases have the infrastructure as a security company. So our SBMCs, together with all the other stakeholders, can go to them and say, our schools are located here, here, and here. What is your data that is available as regards the incidents that have been happening in and around these areas? From this data, what can you tell us in terms of key quick tips that we can use to safeguard our children? In the event that something happens, what do you think should be our lines of response? And then how can we then teach this to our children? So those kinds of things that the private, quote and unquote, let me just say the non-governmental sector can bring to the community, I feel are very, very strong points that even if it's championed by a senator, if it's championed by, quote and unquote, a big man in the society, if it's championed by the head of the SBMC, we can call in these security companies to give a talk, to set some of the key, not policy now, but guidelines that we can guide ourselves in our schools by. I think that also adds impetus to what Wisdom has said and what we're conversing about here.
Okay, thank you very much. Are, now that you are here, what do you think, having an understanding of what is in the policy, the safeguarding policy and the school safety policy, what do you think is going to be the last mile application for these policies? Over to you, Are. What do you think will be the last mile? Where will the civil society come in? Where will the community come in the implementation of school safety and safeguarding policy that is being cooked? And then even in the Nigeria, the state police conversation, because I'm still thinking that, yes, if we have state police, it will bring policing closer to the people. But can it bring policing closer to everybody? Because we still have to, so what do you think, sir? Are there...
Okay, all right. Once again, thank you very much. So trying to link these questions together. Now, like you said, having the policy in place is one thing, and how do we actually get the policy in place? Number one, from the civil society angle, we all need to come together and then work in synergy, and then push and make sure this is achieved. To the current state of the national safeguarding child protection procedure, at least all the relevant stakeholders have been able to come first and second sitting, and then it's been presented to the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. What we need now is to consolidate our efforts and bring it up to because Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, as it stands in social practice in Federal Republic of Nigeria, have the responsibility for things around children. They have the mandate of children. Anything that has to do with children in Federal Republic. So we need to come together, form a synergy, explain to the importance to the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, and use through that effort. Of course, it has to go through the National Assembly, and the President have to assent presidential approval. Okay, so that is how we can come together on having the safeguarding policy in place. Now, the role of police, how do we link that? Of course, to some certain states, I can say with all sense of humility that the state policing, that's a law or act that has just been signed at the National Assembly, is absolutely nothing new as far as I'm concerned on a personal note. And I would say it puts a practical example to southwestern states of Nigeria have, even before the state policing, have put in place a measure called the Western State Security Sector, which they call Amotepo. Now, the function we want state police to come and perform is the same function that Amotepo is performing. The only difference I see there, quote and unquote, may be that Amotekun structure does not have power to prosecute. So when they actually arrest somebody, they will have to hand over to police for prosecution. So now, the structure of state policing is already, somehow in place for me. So, and how do
But
you
okay,
then put all these things to come to the community?
okay. How
We
does this
need to
affect the
go back.
community? How does it affect the schools?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you. Izum. So, Brother Wisdom, you can take over from there. Let's see what can you speak to this conversation. Is it my
Okay,
own?
so I mean, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just to follow up on what I think Chief Arre was saying, the state policing initiative would eventually go a long way to assist or curb down or more or less increase decision making at the state level to responding to crises as they do happen and prioritizing um, resources to where it is most needed, because at the top they might not have an holistic and overview of what exactly is happening in the state. But I mean, state policing now solves that particular problem. But I would always go back to my first point that security is a community first problem than it is a federal problem. I'm not saying that the federal does not have any concerns with security. I'm just saying that we as a community, we are the first line of, more like the first responders and the first line of defense if anything is to happen. So we should own um, community policing. We should focus more on it. We should focus more on community intelligence. We should focus more on community efforts towards ensuring that our schools are safe, our environments are safe. Because a community that is safe and secure would eventually thrive in other aspects of their dealings. So I mean, it's just about the community owning up to it and doing the bare minimum things to ensure that security is prioritized at their level.
Okay. Thank you very much. Brother Louis. Now, we have been, you see, we can't speak about sustainable.
Hello?
Hello? Are you have the floor. You want to say? Okay, Brother Louis, if you can hear me. I said the
Yes, I
sustainable
can hear you.
approaches to creating safer and more supportive learning environment through shared responsibility and community participation. And that led us to what I'm interested in is how do you plug in the community to the policy and then the policing? Because these are different silos and everybody seems to be doing something in their space. But the important thing is that the victims, who are our children, are still the victim. So, and one thing I know is that this state policing thing, even though it's been on the table for quite some time, I pray that it will see the light of day. And you remember in our first conversation here, we spoke about government coming and government going. And we agreed that no matter what happens to the political space, the community remains the community. We, all things being equal, by the grace of God, May 29th of next year, there will be another republic or another, whatever they call it, another, not necessarily another government, maybe an extension of this one or in anyone. There will be an election next year. And with the election comes in either a completely new government or a government rearranged. And in some of these states, some of the governors are already doing 2 terms, so they have to go. In some of these states, some of the governors are going to lose election. And therefore, even if the State Police Act is passed in this dispensation, that remains only effectively 8 or 9 months, can it be set up before, within this time we are talking about, or another government will come in and will take its due process? And even if this current government, the one that we are in, how do you set state police in 36 states? I believe in state police. I agree with it. However, the community is where I want us to look at. How can the community work to ensure the safety of their children? Brother Louis,
Very
what do you
well,
have to
sir.
say to this?
Very well articulated, sir. Um, I also do believe that the passing of the policy is just the step one. For the things that are currently going on in the community right now, what I believe is that even as things are now, there are still situations where within the community they can mobilize with each other to establish, like I'm even saying, even if there's no technology, like just bare minimum. Because what I do see is, for example, there are some areas in Abuja before they were developed, people had to move in there. And so maybe some people built their houses, the land was cheaper, they built their houses, but now they are one man in almost a whole, a really large area where maybe 100 or 200 houses should have been. You just have one or two or three people there. They are able to organize some form of vigilante to ensure, that their stuff doesn't get stolen as frequently. So it tells me that if the community decides to organize, it's a decision. There's nobody that doesn't know that kidnapping is rampant, and there's nobody that doesn't rub off the wrong way. It is that critical mass required for people to come together to say, in our own community, oh, it won't happen again if it has happened before, and it will not happen if it has never happened. Once you have, which is why we are always talking about the point of call, which is the SBMC or the school teachers or the parents. We're always talking about, because the rallying point has to start from one place. While government, of course, as we said, the previous episode, we have been talking about lack of sharing of information, people working in silos, bureaucracy in government, etc., which are standard things that happen all over the world. But a lot of these kinds of movements, they emanate from somewhere. The head of the SBMC comes out to say, I know XYZ people that they can, if we speak to them, they can, instead of, giving the money for something that may not be productive, they can actually divert that money to us for us to pay security guards. It's sort of like service charge. The security guard doesn't have to be from the police force. They can hire a security company to pay that, as this is what we are doing for our children. We talked about much earlier on the episode that there are several policies, including some schools that have farms, for which those farms should have been properly done and generating revenue. But because we have banditry and terrorism going on, it's not happening. The community can make a considered effort to take back, those places. I say this, it's not from a place of ignorance that I don't know that the bandits are armed and the community leaders are not, but I also don't believe that there is any situation that the number of people thinking together are not able to solve. So whether they are going to come together to raise the money or come together to physically protect or whatever it is, it has to emanate from somewhere. If for example, Federal Ministry of Education does a rallying call to all the SBMCs to say, now that state police is out there, it's a good sign, but we're not waiting for it. Can you mobilize within your community that you're protecting, or your school that you're protecting, to get these 5 critical things: school fence, security guards, XYZ, rally around, and then let's share success stories with each other. In this LGA, this is what we did and it worked. Oh, we never thought of that in LGA too. Let's adopt your model from here. Those kinds of things that come from the people, I think will give us the greatest success. Like I always say, when they don't provide water for you from water board, like as it happens in Port Harcourt, you dig a borehole, you keep it moving. So these are some of the things that I think might be helpful for
Okay,
us.
thank you. I want to introduce another level of conversation. Some time ago, the Nigerian police, working with the Kano State, started what is called the Kano State School Protection Squad. I'm sure you have heard that before. Kano State School Protection Squad. The Kano State School Protection Squad is a specialized policing initiative established by the Nigerian Police Force to enhance protection of primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions against threats, including banditry, kidnapping, and terrorism. The operational structure of this Kano State School Protection Squad is that there's an LI 60-man unit of specially trained police officers. Training was conducted in Abuja, focusing on school security operations, counter-terrorism tactics, and intelligence-driven threat tracking. The unit was deployed across Kano Senatorial District and equipped with specialized gear, operational vehicles, and tracking tools for effective patrol and rapid response in Kano State. And no wonder, in a bit, we've not had any of these ugly things happening in Kano. I mean, does that sound like a surprise to you, Wisdom?
No, it doesn't, because like we said, when you own your infrastructure, you sort of take charge of certain things. And security, or the bandits or the criminals, they don't strike where there's some sort of ready preparedness. They don't strike. So if a criminal comes into an area, he looks for the weakest possible point to strike. So he's going to scout and say, "Oh, this place, it seems like nobody's here. It seems like nobody checks on this building. It seems like this, so it's easy, low hanging fruit for me to easily just move in and collect it. You get. But when we show a certain level of preparedness, and it happens in real life. They say dress the way you want to be addressed. There's a way you dress into a building with wearing suit and tie, and someone will think you own the building. And there's a way you dress with slippers, and they will chase you out of the building. Same thing applies to security. There's a certain level of preparedness and readiness we would show, and the insurgents and the bandits will think twice, right? Just before they attack. That is also an advantage to being ready. So it doesn't come as a surprise that after they've taken those steps, you hardly hear any form of school violence or violence towards children in school.
Thank you. Now, the Safe School Initiative, it was launched in May of 2014 following the abduction of over 200 schoolgirls in Chibok, Borno State. The Safe School Initiative is Nigeria's flagship national framework addressing systemic school insecurity. It was jointly developed by the federal government, international development partners, and private sector stakeholders. That was what I was talking about. The core pillars and interventions. Students were relocated from, there are some places that were vulnerable. So 2,400 students from highly vulnerable or conflict-affected schools in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa states were relocated to safer institutions across Nigeria with full coverage of education and accommodation costs. And then provision of funding for reconstruction and rehabilitation of damaged schools. And then community guard network, establishment of training of local early warning groups comprising parents, teachers, and youth to identify, report, and respond to emerging threats in coordination with security agencies. Now, this was done in the Northeast. No wonder there has not been more of the insecurity. We haven't seen that in the Northeast. Some things were done. They moved to Southwest, and they moved to North Central. And how do you think this is affecting the conversation? These are things that has happened in Nigeria. So when we're talking about, it didn't happen in Northwest, and so they can't kidnap from Northwest. It didn't. But why didn't we scale this thing that happened and was successful in Yobe, in Adam? Why didn't you scale it to the whole country? Why did we stop in the places where we stopped? Aaron, please, what do you think to this Safe School Initiative? Hello? His network. Oh, brother, wisdom.
So I
Hello.
think I think it boils down to what we said earlier, that we don't lack policies, we lack a system of implementation, right? And we lack state drivers. So it's one thing for the federal government to establish initiatives that would benefit and ensure that, oh, the citizens are well taken care of. It's another thing for us to have state actors that are genuinely interested in taking the policies and implementing them. So let's, if without even going far, let's look at the SBMCs. We've also come to realize that a lot of these SBMCs that were set up as a result of this same Safe School initiative have not been active, have not been carrying out their duties. But these policies exist, the initiative exists, but we have lack of state actors that are not either taking it seriously enough or are not deploying the assets that have been given to them by the federal government.
Brother Louis, I want you to listen to this. Is it there?
Very well so, sir. Very well so.
The Safe School initiative successfully sustained access to education for thousands of children in high-risk regions and contributed to the development of Nigeria's national policy on violence-free schools. However, implementation at scale, now listen to this again. However, implementation at scale has been constrained by funding limitations, governance challenges, and evolving insecurity patterns, including the geographical displacement of threats across regions. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The framework has been transitioned into a long-term national security strategy for education. Now, listen to this, is where it gets very interesting. The federal government has committed approximately 144.8 billion under a multi-year funding plan extending through 2026. What do you have to say that? 144.8 billion.
Or on a personal note, I would like to, see the breakdown.
I think next episode we should interrogate 144.8 billion under a multi-year funding plan extending through 2026. Operational coordination is now centralized under the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps through the National Safe School Response Coordination Center. So we need to find out, is this center, does it exist anywhere? And the money in question, I mean,
I think it's worth noting on a very because that's almost 4 billion per state.
yes.
It will be interesting. We can get some good technological equipment with that. But what I do think is and this is a personal, I mean, this is just from a personal point of view, the over centralization, in my opinion, of power, it makes us less proactive and more reactive. Because like my understanding of this fund now, I will have to go read up on it, is that somewhere in the federal, we've established this fund so that we can respond to threats that are emerging across 36 states plus FCT. Before you reach somewhere far in the south or somewhere far in the north, as they will say it in pidgin, they don't dark. So it then makes us much more reactive. Something is happening here, we rush and put our attention there. Something is happening here, and Chief Arrest said this as well. So whether it's the NCDS, whether it's the NCDC, whether this is a federal government initiative, whether the funds are currently, available for disbursing, whether it's a case of the states do not know, but through platforms like Vox Edu TV, now they know, and then they can, try and get out the funds. Whatever it is, it would be nice to learn more a little bit about the fund, understand what is inside the breakdown. We are never short for policies. We're a nation of over 200 million smart people. It's the implementation that is always the problem. So, sir, I will just indulge you. I will come for the write-up. And the breakdown.
There is a 144.8 billion funding that was supposed to run through the National State School Response Coordination Center. What do you have to say to that, civil society? I hear money, you keep quiet. Wisdom. Because
I think first
Hello?
of all, has the fund been implemented? Is it active? Has it been disbursed? Do we know what it was used for? Or has the money been
that is
spent or the money has been budgeted? Which
that is it has been, I don't know how to answer the question, but it was developed in 2014, and it was
or in
supposed to run to
2014?
and it's supposed to
It was
run
supposed to
through
run to when?
2026. Through
To 2020. Okay.
2026.
Okay, so that's excellent. So that means from 2014 to 2026. So let's assume that the money has been spent.
I
But the
don't let
question
us
now is,
assume.
no, well, like, for all intent and let's assume that the money has been spent. But on what? What was the money spent on?
So,
Because
Alain, what do you have to
I,
say to this? It's gone. Oh, okay.
I would assume that a budget of that size should be able to buy a private army for the entire school system in Nigeria. So all the schools should have a private army backing them, and we won't be having insecurity. Anything short from that, then we need to ask some very important questions. Where did the
So
money
that
go to?
and that is why I will be interested. Vox Edu will be interested in. By the way, I engaged National Orientation Agency early on Monday, and the conversation is ongoing. They asked us to write a letter. We wrote a letter, and it's passing through bureaucracy. I asked them if they will give me a feedback to share within the week. They said no, they don't do like that. I told them that they are still kidnapping our children, so we have to do what we have to do quickly. They said I should calm down. So, Malam Ali Isa, you are welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir. How are you?
Very good. You are from SBMC Gombe. You are from SBMC Gombe.
I'm the ward head of my area.
The network.
Okay, I'm the district head of my area.
Oh, district head. Oh, very good.
Yes, yes.
So tell us about the situation, the security situation in your area. God has been protecting you. It has not allowed anybody to come and steal your children. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello. Is it still there? So anyway, there is a community guard network that is supposed. So I'm going to continue the conversation, and now I'm going to add another layer to our conversation with the investigation. There is supposed to be a community guard network, a national community guard network that is supposed to be at the office of the National Security, NSDC, so which we have to also interrogate. We have to be able to look at some of these things and bring the report back to the community so that they can know what to look out for and who to look out for, and the questions to start asking their state commissioners of police. And if by the grace of God, or when, not if, when by the grace of God the state police becomes operational, they will now know that the state commissioner, the state police is not going to start in from zero. At least with 144.8 billion, we need to find out how much is remaining of the money, how much has been spent, and what it has been spent on. And then it's not getting interesting. It's getting darker, and I don't know. Gombe man, are you still there? Yes, network has bounced him out. Brother Louis, I think we should start rounding up now. This 144.8 is depressing me. How can we have that kind of a money and then they are still stealing our children.
It's quite unfortunate. I wish I had a good answer or a response. My very uneducated, uninformed guess would be that a lot of the money went into organizing to do the work, and then when it was time for the work, the infrastructure that was supposed to be on ground, unfortunately, we weren't able to get the proper infrastructure, to be on ground, or the money actually got the infrastructure to be on ground, and due to the poor maintenance culture of not just even government but just Nigerians in general, those infrastructure are now obsolete because 2014 is a long time, 10 years ago, or dilapidated, or even stolen by the community. It's um it's sad. It's quite sad because I know that was the area of the Chibok kidnapping, etc. So forth. um it will be still good to see the breakdown. How was this money spent? But it's quite sad. Don't let us depress you further, sir. These are some of the issues.
Brother William, any word of encouragement after we have spent this kind of money? Encourage me, my brother.
I don't think I have any words to encourage you. I think we've gotten to the point where the investigation is beginning to reveal the true nature of things surrounding why we're having issues around security, especially with our schools over the nation, right? And it is sad, or it's going to be sad if the investigation leads to some certain level of enrichment by certain individuals as against prioritizing safety to the students and children at large. But there's good news. If we could raise a 148 billion, we're a rich nation. We can raise another one and actually do the work. So I believe there was a leader we had one time that said Nigeria doesn't have a money problem. We have how do we spend the money? So hopefully the money is not finished and we can raise another 148 billion to get our schools safe. So that is what I can
Because
say.
getting our school safe is non-negotiable.
Yes, it's not. It's not. We
It
can't
has to be
negotiate it.
done. And
It
then,
does.
the other man spoke yesterday that they don't want our children to go to school. I also don't believe that. So that means educating the children is also non-negotiable. So here we have two non-negotiable facts. The students must return back to school, and students must do what they have to do to go back to school. And so Vox Edu will be asking more questions now. So we are beginning to get more questions than answers. We are beginning to, we thought we were going to be giving answers, but now we are getting questions. I don't know. I don't know. So I just pray that God will help us to be able to do what we are supposed to do. So, gentlemen, um, let me have your final word on this conversation here. We are starting from the community back to the government, and then the community must own, the community owns the children. And therefore, it is important for the community not to allow their children to be taken over by the bandits. So what say you? Final word, Brother Louis.
Absolutely, sir. I think you hit the nail on the head. Um, let's start seeing some movement from the community. I really wish Network allowed the gentleman that came on that said he was the world leader for his SBMC to give us a little bit more insight, and then we can talk about what are the practical things that can be done pending when policy kicks in. But spot on with your final submission and with mine as well would just be the conversation needs to keep happening. Platforms like Vox Edu remain very important, and we should keep these conversations going such that we are all oriented in the right direction, and then we can start taking some action within our space to see how we can reduce the occurrence of these vile maniacal acts.
Okay, thank you. So the conversation continues. Brother Wisdom, let me have your final thoughts.
So I would close with these two thoughts. One, You don't need a budget to build a safety culture. We just need decisions, right? Good decisions to build a culture around safety. And secondly, a child can be behind a locked fence and still be completely unsafe. Safety is a culture. So what am I saying? In all we are doing, we should embark for a culture that has safety encrusted on it boldly, not having to wait for the 140 billion, but doing our best to ensure that we imbibe safety as a culture and as a people.
Thank you very much. So final talk is that the community should still own the school. The community should still own the safety. We have agreed in the first episode that a government will come, government will go, but the school, the children, and the community will remain. It has been Vox Edu investigating and looking and interrogating issues around school safety. My guests have
Hello.
been Brother Louis Akuveso and Brother Wisdom, and then Are Shegun, a civil society advocate, who has been looking at this conversation. And we still end with the same conviction. It is our school. They are our children. And we must keep them safe. Thank you very much. Till I see you next week, Thursday. God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sal.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're out of the studio. Close the studio now. What happened to that one? Let me see. Is it, do you need them to take out the studio?